Believe me when I say this, I did not pull this out of thin air. Welcome in, Falcons fans, to Falcons Today by Chat Sports. My name is Moose, and on today's show, you are reading correctly. Tyreek Hill to the Falcons trade rumors are red hot right now in the NFL media. According to one NFL source, this is one major move that you could see happen, according to this source, before the Week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers starts for the Dirty Birds. Let me start by saying this. I know y'all hate trade rumor videos. If there's no actual developing story, most of you are like, this is a nothing burger. Why are we making this? And I understand where you're coming from. However, this one specific source believes that this could actually happen. So it's my duty to explore it, give you my thoughts and opinions on it, and then ultimately tell you if I think this is real or if I think this is just a load of you-know-what. But let's start by saying this before I get into anything else. Thank you so much for 38,000 subscribers. It is a huge milestone here on the channel. It's unbelievable to think that in just my short 3 weeks of doing this channel, we have already hit our first major milestone. So do me a favor, if you want more free NFL content surrounding your Dirty Birds, that includes news, rumors, etc., watch parties, hit that subscribe button and lock us in. So who is this source that's talking about Tyreek to the Atlanta, the ATL? Well, it's Bleacher Report. Now, usually I take Bleacher Report with a grain of salt. Why? Because they come out with some outlandish trade rumors, and usually the offer is just crazy to think about, so I don't even pay it any attention. That's like 90% of the time. 10% of the time, however, I feel like they kind of hit the mark, and this is one of those times. Here's what they specifically said about Mr. Hill coming to Atlanta. The Falcons don't have a timetable for wideout Darnell Mooney's return from that shoulder injury he suffered during the preseason. Well, we do now know that Darnell Mooney is back at practice, so he should be back sooner rather than later. According to head coach Raheem Morris, he's week to week, and if the 27-year-old wideout is in healthy condition during the trade deadline or by the trade deadline, Atlanta could include him in the deal. The Falcons should be proactive in an approach to match their offensive firepower with that of the division-leading Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With Michael Penix Jr. on his rookie deal, Atlanta should consider acquiring Hill, who can aid in the development, of its young quarterback. So let me just take a little time out right there. Are you telling me the Falcons' problem is a lack of weapons? I completely disagree with that sentiment. Like, vehemently disagree. Drake London is an absolute number one. Darnell Mooney is a very solid number two, a high-end three. And Ray McCloud, I believe, is just scratching the surface of what he's going to end up being as an NFL player. So, you mean to tell me right now the Falcons' biggest issue is their wide receiver room? Give me a break. It's not. In fact, it's one of the lone bright spots of this Falcons team right now, considering the injury bug has hit them hard on the offensive line, to Braylon Trice, etc. So no, this is not a lack of weapons problems. But let me talk a little bit more about Tyreek Hill for a second, because we do have to explore who he is as a player, at least right now, and why he'd make sense for the Falcons. So we do know that prior to last year, where Tua Tagovailoa, his quarterback, was out for, I believe it was 5 games, Tyreek Hill was putting up numbers. We're talking about a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL over the last 4 seasons. And I don't think you can argue. The numbers don't lie, especially that 2023 season. Holy cow, was he unbelievable. But then he saw a little bit of a dip in 2024. Now, some of that could have been because Tua was out for an extended period of time. Some of it could be because he's getting older and maybe, just maybe, not nearly the player that he once was in 2023. Either way, I think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think he's an 1,800-yard receiver anymore, but I don't think he's as low as 989. I think you're looking at somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 yards, which is still outstanding. Why else does it make a lot of sense? Well, the NFL is now primarily on defense, a zone scheme game. Well, Tyreek Hill succeeds and excels in zone defense. He's the 20th wide receiver in route win rate against zone defense. So it's a new statistic the NFL is kind of rolling out. It's win rate against man coverage. It's win rate against zone defense. He's a whole lot better against zone coverage than he is against man. He's not nearly as physical off the line of scrimmage as he is in creating open space because of his speed. So Here's the trade proposal that Bleacher Report cooked up just for you. This is not mine. This is theirs. They have Tyreek Hill going to the Falcons for a third-round pick and Darnell Mooney. So this year's third and Darnell for Tyreek Hill. Now, I've got some thoughts about this, but I'm going to ask you straight up. Would you accept this trade from Miami? If they got on the phone, they called Terry Fontenot, and they said, hey, here's our offer. Would you do this? Yes or no? Let me know in the comment section down below. My answer, yes, I would make this deal. I think it would be crazy not to make this deal, considering you're only giving up a third and Darnell Mooney. And the combination of the likes of Drake London and Tyreek Hill would feed families. I sincerely agree with that, or believe that, I should say. However, there is one big but here. The Falcons don't need another wide receiver. So I would rather trade for a stud offensive lineman or another nickel corner. Now, considering the Falcons have already made some moves on the offensive line, signing a couple guys to their practice squad and making a trade for the Seahawks' Michael Jarrell, I would focus primarily on the latter half of that sentence, a nickel corner. And I'm going to break down exactly the one move that I think the Falcons could make before they play the Buccaneers in Week 1 that would actually do a lot of good. But before I do that, let me tell you about today's sponsor, and that, of course, is PrizePicks. Let me tell you, my friends, football season is officially upon us, and PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. It's very simple to play. Just pick 2 to 6 players and their stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could win up to 2,000 times your money. This is kind of how it works if you want a quick little idea. You've basically got your player. You pick them more or less, and then you see your winnings go up and up and up and up. But make sure you pick correctly. So do me a favor. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll have all of that in the comments and description of today's video. PrizePicks. Run your game. So let's talk about this one specific trade that I believe the Falcons could make to bolster their defense, because we're talking about a nickel corner now. And I know, I want to get this out of the way first. I am all aboard the Billy Bowman hype train. Toot toot. I'm really looking forward to watching him play. He definitely won the position over D. Alford. This would not be for necessarily Week 1. I know I said that, but this could be a trade deadline move if Billy Bowman doesn't necessarily work out. There's the guy named Jourdan Lewis, who is used to play for the Cowboys, spent the majority of his entire career with the Cowboys, recently now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is a nickel corner that I believe would not cost nearly as much, but also someone that could step in and be a very, very good player right off the bat. He is a veteran. So somebody that has been drafted in 2017. He was the third-round pick by the Cowboys. He signed this March with the Jaguars, and last year put up a very, very good season with 78 tackles, 8 pass breakups, 1 pick. Now, why on earth would you want to trade for a guy like this? He is a veteran that understands the position, as seen by his 2024 statistics. I mean, these are really, really good numbers. Specifically, that very end number right there, that coverage grade at 79.0. That just goes to show you he's a player that understands spatial awareness. He's got great eye discipline. He understands how to keep up with wide receivers and run the exact same routes as them. Now, is he necessarily right in the middle of his prime? No. We'll touch on that here in just a little bit. But I also think that Jourdan Lewis is a player that it could give you that solidified position right away. And if Billy Bowman, for whatever reason, the first couple of weeks, just doesn't fill that position the right way, right? Like if he's just not getting it quite yet because he's still struggling with the adjustment of going from safety to corner, then maybe this is something that you could absolutely explore. But I will say this, Jourdan Lewis is maybe a little bit out of your price range in the future. Also, one of those players that is getting older. So there's a pro with every single con. So what are those cons? Well, let's talk about him. He's 30 years old. He's going to be 31 next year. He's not much of a run defender. In fact, his PFF grade, and going back and watching the tape, he's not a guy that climbs the box nearly as much as you would like. And he's also a $12.8 million cap hit in 2026, whereas this year, he's only a $5 million cap hit. So it would help you in the short term. In the long term, you'd be looking at paying him, that $13 million cap hit next year would hurt a little bit. Now, does that necessarily matter? No, not crazy amount. And also, he still has 2 more years on his current contract, so you wouldn't have to pay him until 2028. So like I said, there's ebbs and flows in this specific trade that I have cooked up. So here's what I would say. If you were to go explore this trade for a guy like Jourdan Lewis, a 2026 6 is all I would be willing to give up for him. At this point in his career, this is what I'd be willing. The Jaguars would probably want a 5th. Well, the Falcons don't have a 5th in 2026. I'm not giving up a 4th. So I'd offer the 2026 6th, and hopefully they would bite on it if the Falcons decided to cover a little bit of extra costs. Do you like my trade idea? If so, type T for trade. If you don't, type D for decline. I think this would be a very beneficial thing for the Falcons, simply because if Billy Bowman doesn't work out, which, again, I think he will, and that, if that is the case, then this is all just a moot point. But I do think that in the event that Bowman struggles, this could be a very, very nice replacement, especially if the Falcons are in the midst of a playoff season. A reminder to subscribe to the channel if you have not already, like the video if you haven't already. And as always, Falcons fans, rise up and be cool.